بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا وسهلا بكم جميعا في اللقاءات الرقمية لمبادرة ثينكتك. في البداية أعرفكم عن نفسي. العنود عبد الله شويعر، مدير إدارة المعرفة الرقمية في وزارة الاتصالات وتقنية المعلومات. مبادرة ثينكتك هي تعتبر مظلة لمشاريع توعوية استراتيجية على مستوى المملكة العربية السعودية. هذه المبادرة أطلقتها وزارة الاتصالات وتقنية المعلومات لاستشراف مستجدات التقنية لتحقيق التنمية المستدامة ونشر الوعي حول التقنيات الناشئة والثورة الصناعية الرابعة، وتغطية الاحتياج المعرفي التقني لجميع المتحدثين باللغة العربية، لخلق مجتمع رقمي صاعد إلى مستقبل هو ملك لمن يستعد له، والوصول بالمملكة العربية السعودية لطليعة الدول المبتكرة وتحقيق أهداف رؤية 2030. ونسعد اليوم بإطلاق أول لقاء رقمي لشراكتنا المعرفية الرائدة مع مدينة الأحلام نيوم، المدينة الذكية المبنية على التقنيات الناشئة، لنرفع الوعي معا ونرى المستقبل بأعيننا. نرحب بكم وبالمتحدثين في لقائنا هذا، وهو بعنوان ما وراء المدن الذكية، تطوير المجتمع الإدراكي. كما يسعدنا اليوم أن نرحب بمدير اللقاء الدكتور صالح محمد قاضي، أكاديمي بجامعة ليدز البريطانية وباحث بدرجة دكتوراه في مجال المدن الذكية، وهو عضو مركز أبحاث AIM Tech ليدز البريطاني، وعضو منظمة IEEE ومؤسس مبادرة مجتمع أذكى. كذلك له تجارب عدة مع هيئات سعودية في مجال المدن الذكية. فأهلا وسهلا دكتور صالح، تفضل.
Thank you very much, Anod. Good morning, everyone. Today, and first of all, of course, thank you very much for ThinkTech initiatives for organizing this webinar. It's such an important topic to be having and discussing. So thank you very much for this introduction and for hosting and organizing this webinar today. Today we are having a very special and important guest talking about important and special topic in a special context. We are having Mr. Joseph Bradley, who is working in New York City as a President of Technology and Digital. He is a former VP in Cisco, and he is an icon and well-known person when it comes to technology. Mr. Joseph Bradley, we are so lucky to have you, and welcome.
Thank you very much. It's been great to be here. Been in Saudi for about a year now, and my wife and I have enjoying our time, and just super excited to have the opportunity to talk to you today about my passion, NEOM.
Indeed. Okay. Would you like Mr. Bradley to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Sure. So Joseph Bradley, I've spent about 30 years of my life in technology. I started out in telecommunications at AT&T. I was the chief financial officer for AT&T's California organization. And then I was very fortunate to be the individual responsible for rolling out DSL for the US, for California. I then left AT&T and became CEO of C3 Communications, which is another telco provider, and then went to spend 14 years at Cisco. At Cisco, I'm known for creating the Internet of Everything, and had a great career at Cisco, and then left Cisco and became the CEO of Uptake, which is a predictive analytics company, and now very, very fortunate and pleased to be the president of the tech and digital sector within NEOM.
As I said, we are very lucky to have you indeed. Okay, so today we will be talking about NEOM, a powerful city, impactful city, especially when it comes to livability, economy, and businesses. We have three parts to cover in today's webinar, and we shall start with the first part, which is talking about smart city and cognitive city in general. And because we are seeing this trend now talking about cognitive and smart city, and perhaps it's a good time to start with what is the difference really between cognitive and smart city?
Yeah, so I think if you think about what we've all lived through, we've all lived through COVID and continue to deal with it. And one thing that it's taught us is real-time information is simply too late. It's not good enough to know that, oh, I have COVID, or no, we have an outbreak. Now, what do we do? we need to have the ability to be predictive. So in other words, real time is simply too late. When you think about smart cities, they were designed to collect information and present it to you in real time, to tell you, here's what's happening. As the world progresses, we know all the value has to be in our ability to predict or be proactive in understanding. So hence is the difference between a smart city and a cognitive city. A cognitive city is proactive, meaning that it is predictive. Not only does it predict what is going to occur, but it is autonomous. That means it can take an action. I know this water pipe is going to break, and so therefore I'm going to dispatch out a technician in 2 weeks and order the proper parts so that when they arrive, they can fix the problem before it occurs. And then finally, it is personalized, meaning that not only do I know what's going to occur and I know what I need to do in order to take action to fix the problem, but I actually have consent. I actually am aware that I can use this data, because so much of the world of a cognitive city, 90% of the data produced in a cognitive city is used. If you think about a smart city, less than 1% of the data is used. And so given the fact that you're going to use so much information and so much data, you have to make sure you have consent built into the system itself. So that's the difference. A cognitive city, it's predictive, it's autonomous, and it's personalized.
Perfect. Okay, I noticed you emphasize things about COVID-19 and data. And is there any link between COVID-19 and the cognitive approach? Is this transformation between smart city and cognitive city was because of COVID, or it was earlier before that?
Yeah, I think the reality is that COVID clearly was an accelerator. COVID didn't change the future. It just brought it closer to us, right? So when you think about what was happening already, we talked about this notion that real time being too late. That was being evident in the world. You know, every time you see something breaking or you have a mechanical process, and whether you're talking about a manufacturing plant mechanical process, or you're talking about a financial transaction, this idea of predictability was already becoming more valuable. In essence, you can think of it this way. The world had already recognized that knowing what you're going to do is actually more valuable than what you do, right? Yeah. And so that trend was already occurring. A second trend that was already occurring is this notion that it's not just good enough to collect data. In other words, it's not content that you want, it's context. Context is king, meaning it's not good enough just to know, hey, this person has COVID or this is the situation. I want to know, where would they been? Who did they talk to before? In other words, I need to be able to have the overall context of the situation, so to collect that information. And then finally, the third trend that I think really brought this home is the need to understand that value improves exponentially as you move data and decision-making as close as you can to the customer, right? So if you think about autonomous driving, a car, if it goes upon a stop sign, that car, you don't want to be in that car and have it get this little thinking hourglass symbol, right? You don't want that. You want that car to be able to make that decision in real time. So in other words, while the cloud is a great place for learning, the world is moving to the edge for a place of execution. So in other words, edge computing, or this notion of moving cloud computing, moving the ability for storage and analysis and compute as close as you can, was already evident. And then COVID just magnified those things and brought it to a very personal level. Anytime you're talking about the effect of human life, obviously it gained a lot of attention. But I don't think COVID changed our pattern. It just brought the future forward. It just accelerated it.
Yeah, making things faster, basically.
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay, through these two questions, you already kind of answered, but if I ask you the questions about when a city becomes smart or cognitive, you already integrated some of your answers, like being able to predict and bring things together, but perhaps like a definition from your perspective, like when a city can become a cognitive, when we can call a specific city, yes, this is a smart city or this is a cognitive city?
Yeah, I think so. Any city, you take a step back and you say, well, what defines a city? And I think a lot of people get confused around, they'll start talking about physical assets or even technology in this case, right? But what's at the center of the city? People.
Yeah.
People define a city. And so when I think about what defines a smart city versus a cognitive one, when do you reach that transition? It's quite frankly when the citizens experience a new version of the world, a new form of livability, where greater than 50% of their activities are predictive, can be predicted before they occur. So they experience it in their lives through a set of solutions, where these solutions are autonomous, meaning that a citizen experiences greater than 50% of what they do, their experiences are autonomous. And then greater than 50% of those experiences are personalized. So I think about what are the experiences of the citizens and to what degree are those predictive, autonomous, and personalized. And when it gets over 50%, then you can begin to say that, hey, we are in a cognitive city.
Yeah, I'm very glad that you raised this point, and in particular the citizens point and the people point, because it's sometimes I feel it's lost in so many initiatives around the world. They just become so technology oriented. Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah. I think I tell people, all the time, technology is an enabler.
Yeah.
It's not an end in itself. Some people, they get so excited and say, well, great, what are you doing with blockchain or trust technologies? Or what about AI or human machine interface technologies? They are an enabling tool. They're not the end destination. They're going to get you somewhere. And so what's missing in many smart city initiatives, and why I think NEOM is so different, is that NEOM, from its very core concept, has put people in the center of the city. So everything starts with the person and moves its citizens and moves its way out. So we're starting with what is the experience we want to enable and design? And then from there, what are the technologies that are required? As opposed to, well, I got these cool technologies. Now, how do I just show a use case? That's a completely different mindset and put you at a totally different level. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think the world is really starting to look at NEOM in a very different light, because of the fact that we started with people in the center. When you think about our greenfield and our approach, all of our sectors, as an example, have the same common data architecture. So, which is, you don't find that anywhere in the world. That's just, it's phenomenal. So to your point, I agree with you. And I think that's one of the unique differences about NEOM, is the focus on the citizen. And when you focus on the citizen, you focus on livability, you focus on redefining conservationism. All those things are at the center of NEOM.
Yeah. Okay. And the question now would be, do you think this is a sensitive, critical time for every city around the world to start to think about cognitive smart city, or perhaps it is not a must for every city?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So if I think about the world as it is today after COVID, every city is all about growth. We've been in a world where every city has experienced economic pressure, GDP pressures, where the world has basically been forced to kind of pause, right?
Yeah.
And if you were from a computing language, you would say, now that we're coming out of COVID, the world is going to have an opportunity to reboot. Cities are going to have an opportunity to hit the button and reboot themselves. And in rebooting themselves, you have to ask the question, where does growth come from? And I think fundamentally, moving from smart to cognitive is critical. because you're experiencing a time where citizens have spent their last year and a half online, being digital. That's how we've been communicating. That's how we've interacted. And so if you're a city, you need to think about, how do I capture the value of this accelerating trend towards digital? How do I monetize that? How do I bring utility to my citizens? And that all starts with being able to collect data, being able to present that and show value to my citizens in a way that allows them to change and fundamentally change their lives. And so I think it's fundamental for every city, because growth is at the center of every city. You have to economically grow. And without a doubt, digital is going to be play a huge role in your ability to grow effectively and efficiently.
Okay, fair enough. Following the citizens conversation, we have one of the audience asking, does putting the citizens in the middle of the heart of smart city meaning personalize government services?
Yes. And so when you think about, when you put the citizen in the center, I think it fundamentally challenges your very definition of what you mean by government, and how does a citizen interact with those services. So example, today, you think of government as, it's a lot of people, lots of resources. You have to go to a specific location, so you go to government. I think when you think of a cognitive city, one that is smart and intelligent and proactive and predictive, you don't go to government, government comes to you. Meaning that as you need to interact, or as you need to create or do things in your life, the systems are seamless. And so you're not even sure if the technology exists. You don't even know if it's there. You just know you're able to get from point A to point B. So as an example, imagine if you think about what COVID has done to the world today of travel, think of how much friction there is in travel. My God, you check a point here, you check a point there, they check you again, they check you again, they check you again. You get checked 25 times before you get from the time you leave your house to the time you get to your destination.
Yeah.
Well, from a NEOM perspective, our goal is you'll book your flight to NEOM, and the only time you'll see your bag, your luggage, is when it's picked up from your house, and then it shows up in your room at your hotel location. When you come to NEOM, we already know who you are. We already have all your identification information. We can identify you based on how you walk. We can identify based on your gait. We can identify you based on your voice. We can identify you based on your optical, your eye imprints. So we know who you are. And so that means that the ability for us to remove security checkpoints and friction, we can do a lot of things because the city into itself has this information. Now, at the core of this is the ability for the citizen to give their consent to participate. And that's really important, because in order for a cognitive city to prosper, you have to have trust. And again, that means you start with that person in the middle of that conversation. So consent is critically important. The ability to express value to the citizen so they understand what they're consenting for and will agree to because they can see value is really important. But yes, it does mean personalized services, but it means a radical redefinition of what you mean by government.
Perfect. And because you mentioned this aspect of NEOM, but perhaps it's a general aspect in terms of you know who is coming and you know the identifications. How is the privacy aspect here? How we will make sure that the rules, the regulations, the citizens' consent, everything related to the privacy will be handled and acknowledged? Yes.
So the first thing is that is part of our belief system. It's part of our, it'll be part of the founding law. It's embedded in who we are. It's embedded in our soul, I would say, of NEOM, that we understand and value consent, meaning that we believe that the owner of the data is that individual, is that citizen at the center. And so if you believe that, and I honestly have to say, I think that belief is spreading throughout the world, whether you're in the UK, GDPR 2.0 coming out, or you look at the various things that are happening. What it means is that means that you have to have a technology infrastructure that can manage consent. And what does that mean? Well, today's technology typically has one person to one data asset. So that means I own this thing, and I can say yes or no to it, but there's only one. Well, that's not the real world. So let me give you an example of a NEOM experience to make it real for you. So let's say I'm coming to NEOM and I'm on the beach. I'm a Western. I'm so excited, and I get up my camera and I want to take this beautiful picture of this sunset and the beach. So I take my camera out and I click the picture. Now I'm excited because it's a wonderful picture. But what that I didn't realize is there's a Muslim woman who happens to be changing her attire in the picture. I didn't see that part. I just looking at the beautiful sunset. So I say, click, I take the picture. Woo! I then go post it to Facebook, and it goes to Twitter, and it's everywhere, man. Everybody's saying, "Oh, what a great place." And then all of a sudden, one of my friends who knows her friends and knows her friend and knows her friend, knows her friend, or another friend says, "Hey, that's what you call it." Now she's upset. Her husband's upset. And she's like, "I'm never coming to NEOM again. I was just trying to enjoy a beautiful thing, and now look what's happened." So what we've created, we call it NEOS, which is NEOM's operating system. It's the world's first cognitive operating system. What NEOS does is, NEOS says, "Hey, Joseph, you're taking that picture using NEOS application. You're taking the picture, and yes, it is your picture, but you do not have control over her likeness." That's the individual in the picture.
Yeah.
And it says she did not give her consent. And so as you take the photo, before it's stored in the cloud, before it's sent somewhere else, her picture disappears.
Okay.
Because she did not give consent. And so the only way to enable that technology is to have that embedded in your initial design, right? And so every person, when they come to NEOM, has the ability to decide what they want to consent for and what they don't. Now, there's lots of ways to handle that, so you don't give a person 2,000 checklists they have to sign. As an example, one way, if you have visitors that are coming from London or Canada, you might say, "Hey, listen, the majority of Canada visitors or your embassy suggest that you consent to the following things to maximize your experience in NEOM." So you could basically provide an intermediary to provide that consent for you, or you could go down the individual items yourself as an example. But the point is that at NEOM, we fundamentally will give you the choice. Now, the question becomes, why is privacy such a big issue? Well, it's a big issue because privacy is contextually based. What I mean by that is it's directly proportional to the value you receive as a individual. So if I tell you, do you value your privacy? You would say yes. But if I say, well, you go to a grocery store and you put what you're going to buy on that conveyor belt and everybody sees it, I thought you told me you value your privacy. You say, well, wait. Well, why do you do that? Well, you do that because you want to get out of the store. It's convenience. In other words, you see value for it. So one of the things that is so important for everyone coming to NEOM is that they see value in this new life. They see value in conservationism. They see value in being able to live in a different means with nature. They see value in 100% renewable energy sources. So all of these things that we're talking about, when the person that wants to come to NEOM, that says, yes, I want to participate in NEOM, will say, hey, I see value in the list of experiences that you're offering. And that's what we're really, that's what we're focused on. Great question. And again, I think we have a huge advantage because we can build the digital laws. We can build all these things from scratch, taking into account the fact that we know an individual and their data and consent is critically important, as opposed to having to re-engineer it back into the process when everything is done. Huge advantage for NEOM.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for this answer. We already approached this second part talking about NEOM. So impactful city, powerful city, and what would be the characteristics of NEOM city? We already mentioned some of the applications, some of what the expectations to see NEOM, but perhaps talking a little bit about NEOM from your perspective.
Yeah. So I think, when I think about what is the experiences that will be enabled in NEOM. So you've obviously, 95% of NEOM citizens will live in the line. And the line is an amazing concept that we are beginning to execute, as we speak. And so when you think about the line, you're talking about the ability to get to any location walkable within 5 minutes, to go from one side of the line to the other within 20 minutes. There's no cars, there's no roads. And so what does that mean? That means the line NEOM is 100% around maximizing livability. So how you live as an individual, as a citizen. And then it's also about redefining conservationism, meaning that because you have technology and because you want to enjoy life, you don't have to do it in a way that hurts or destroys the environment. So NEOM is 100% renewable. So those two things, those two notions, fundamentally, livability and conservationism exists within every asset that we have at NEOM, with everything that we build or do at NEOM. So a typical NEOM experience could be from the time that you book your trip to NEOM. You arrive at the airport, there's no checkpoints. You come outside, and instead of waiting in line and saying, hey, is there, can I find a taxi? We're with hundreds of people trying to figure where that taxi is no, you'll come to an airport. You might have an image of yourself, a picture of yourself projected on the ground. You'll stand in that location. Your air taxi, for lack of a better word, will come and pick you up, will fly you take you to your destination. Now, when you get to that destination, all of us, if you've ever gone to most hotels, they give you the hotel key. And if you're like me, you stick it next to your cell phone, and now you're always going back because it keeps constantly getting erased. Again, we know who you are. Your room is already booked. You can automatically, when you go to the door, it authenticates who you are based on your gait, your eyes, your fingerprint. You don't need to have a key. You know exactly who you are. Your luggage is there when you arrive. But let's say you want to now go to an event. You want to, maybe you want to either go skiing on one of the mountains in the time of the year, or maybe you want to go fishing, or you want not fishing, but you probably want to go swimming, snorkeling would be a good one. So let's say you want to go snorkeling. You go to the concierge. If you go to a hotel's concierge, man, that poor person, man, you're asking them 25 different questions, and they got to be an expert on 25,000 different things. And so, you never get the right expertise because there's only one individual. So you come to NEOM, instead of talking to a human, you'll talk to a humanoid. And that humanoid will say, how can I help you? Now, here's the interesting thing. Behind that humanoid is a person. You don't see that person, but that is an expert designed to help you what you need. So if you say, I want to talk about scuba diving, then we can connect you with a scuba diving expert. And that scuba diving expert, as they are talking about scuba diving, the humanoid is interacting and changing its facial expressions automatically based on how that person is talking. So they don't have to worry about controlling it. They just got to talk, and it's going to interpret their emotions. But now let's say you say, well, also now this scuba was great, but I also would like to know about golfing. What about, and where I can get golf clubs or whatever. Now we want to talk to someone who's a golf expert. Well, you don't have to wait, because now that person instantly takes over the humanoid. Now they're going to give you instructions about golf. And so the point is the ability for technology to provide, again, a seamless experience for you. The technology is working, but you're not really seeing it. You just are experiencing a great experience. And so that's a little bit about what NEOM is. The line has several different communities across the line. Outside the line, we have other areas, other assets. We have a NEOM industrial city that's really built to really foster the latest in manufacturing and advances in robotics. And that's being built and commissioned as we speak. We have folks living and building in NIC right now. So, and in fact, we have probably over 600 people, including myself, living and breathing and building and working in NEOM each and every day. So that's a little bit of sense of what you can expect and see when you come to NEOM. Yeah,
I mean, what you said is amazing, and I can't wait, to be honest, to see what you are saying. And a question from the audience asking about when do you expect for the general public to see the first glimpse of NEOM? And this is perhaps a good question actually from, I guess, almost everyone, because we are so excited to see NEOM.
Yes. Everybody wants to know, when is it happening? So, I think when you think about it on a timeline scale, I think it's important to understand that right now we're building the cognitive, what I call the cognitive foundation. So you're putting in the ability to connect things, you're putting in the ability to compute things, and you're putting in the ability to understand or AI. When you think about kind of right now there are some evidence of some of this. We have some tourism sites that are actually open right now in NEOM, which I think are great to kind of come and see the historical culture of NEOM. So some things that are open right now. But when you think about it, you're really talking about 2025, I think, as being the kind of first milestone where you'll be able to, I think, come and be able to experience several what I would call iconic experiences in NEOM. Several of the assets will be more mature and fully built out. And I think it's important, people say, wow, 2025, cities evolve over hundreds of years. And we're talking about building NEOM in 10, and so I think it's an amazing project. I mean, that's why some of the best and the brightest of the world are here, without a doubt. But I think in 2025, to answer your question, is where I think most folks will be able to come in and experience and see enough unique experiences to define NEOM.
Yeah, so that's not too far, to be honest, from now.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
Okay, you mentioned so much about technology and the advancement of technology. And this raised the concerns for most of the audience, and including myself, about the cybersecurity aspect. How will you deal with the challenges in terms of the security and the cybersecurity aspect, basically?
Yeah, I think so. I'll start out with a famous kind of line in the U.S. that was used in one of the movies, and they said, "Why do people rob banks? Why do robbers rob banks?" And it was kind of, the guy looks at him and says, "Well, because that's where the money is." Mm-hmm. So why is cybersecurity so important? Why are people talking about security? Because the reality is that's where the value is. The value is in digital experiences, right? And so anytime you have something that's a value, you have people and characters of the world, unfortunately, that want to take or get some of that value. So yes, we have the traditional means that everyone across the world uses with threat management and talking about the full attack continuum, meaning what happens before an attack, what happens during an attack, and what happens after the attack. So we have the latest in cybersecurity from a sense of sharing and interacting with existing technologies. But that's not really the core of what NEOM is. That doesn't make it NEOM-like. That doesn't make it NEOM-ness. And so what I like to talk about is, while the rest of the world talks about cybersecurity, we at NEOM have to go a level above that. And we have to talk about cyber integrity. What do I mean by cyber integrity? Why do you care about securing data? Because you say data is valuable. Well, why do you assume data is valuable? Well, because you assume it is correct. That is not an assumption that we can make. So a smart city only uses 1% of its data, so it can assume that the data is correct. A cognitive city is using 90% of its data. You're making predictive decisions on this. You can't assume that data is correct. So before you worry about securing it, and integrity is security plus data correctness, I have to make sure that this sensor is reporting accurate information. So I got to make sure that the data I'm getting is correct and valuable, and it's secure. And so we think about cyber integrity as encompassing that. And so we have artificial intelligence tools to allow us to analyze over 1,000 variables associated with a particular device to create a unique device fingerprint, which means that we know that not only is this device the device we think it is, but that it is reporting information correctly. It's not malfunctioning. We don't have a problem.
Yeah.
And that's critically important. So yes, we have redundancy built in throughout from a physical infrastructure standpoint, where the line can withstand multiple cuts and not lose connectivity and not lose data. We use an ability from an AI perspective to analyze, again, the full attack continuum. So in a really simple example of this, and I'm going to oversimplify it for the techies, but very simplified, would say, hey, we're noticing an attack coming in, someone trying to break into a system or a service in Neom. We want to spin up a virtual instance of that service that looks and acts exactly like that service. So we're going to spin that up virtually in real time. That those attacks are going to be then directed to this service, not the real one. So now we got before, now we're during the attack, now it's after, and now during the attack, we want to begin to analyze and understand what is happening so we can understand how they got this far, how we can prevent it, and then we can shut it down. So those are things that is an oversimplified example, but we infuse the same tools basically that the hackers would use, we are using as a defense mechanism, and we're covering the full attack continuum before, during, and after the attack. And we don't stop there. We also, again, look at data integrity, which is critically important for us. So that's basically, our approach around this. Security is not something you do one time. It's a consistent, ongoing process, right? It doesn't stop. And again, we have the advantage because unlike the rest of the world who had all these systems that weren't designed to be autonomously controlled, right? They weren't designed for this new world of digital. They just weren't designed from it. We have a huge advantage because we can design from the very beginning this new world. So and the last example I would give you is if you think about, in most cases of the world today, you have a security code. Here's my passcode. That's how I get into, here's my password. That's how I get into I use that to get into certain functions or functionalities, right?
Yeah.
Well, in the world of Neom, we want to move towards role-based access. You get access based on your role, based on your qualifications, based on what you need, right? Password can be copied. So what does that mean? That means, let's say let's say you go out to a Neom site and you see a tractor, big, huge, one of these earth movers. What we want to get to a point is that we don't want some kid just being able to get on an earth mover and being able to turn around. Maybe they got the key somehow. We want you in the future that we enable, a person would come to the earth mover. As soon as they put their hands, it would recognize them and say, oh, yep, you are trained. Whoop, you're trained to operate this. You're a Neom employee. Yep, you can go, we'll start. Or no, you're not. I don't recognize you. You're not trained. They're the right age group, whatever the case may be. And so all of these things, multi-factor authentication, the fact that we can use so much data to identify and understand context puts us in a very, very unique position, I think, to thwart off 99% of most security threats. You're always going to have a situation where you will continuously, you're not going to be perfect. The world is not perfect, but it's your reaction speed, your ability to predict certain things. And I think we're putting everything together to really make NEOM not just a great location, but a safe and secure one as well.
Brilliant. It's a long answer, but it is very informative. So thank you for that. Okay, talking about jobs and careers, what are some of the jobs that we are expecting to see in NEOM? Because we have high level of automation. So what people will be doing?
Yeah. So one is that from a tech perspective, the number one job for tech at NEOM hasn't been created yet. So people always ask me that question. I'm like, the top job in tech, we haven't even thought of it yet. No one's created it yet because we don't know. Because when you think about what's going to happen in the future, it's very difficult to project out. But what we can talk about is what's happening and what we know, what we plan for, what's now. And so if you think about it, I would think about the jobs as two different roles. So one is NEOM is 90% of the assets. You think about programmability. Living in NEOM, 90% of the world will be programmable. That means you're going to need a whole heck of software developers. You're going to need software engineers. The world of software is going to reign. Data integrity, data taggers, data specialists, data scientists, all hosts of folks that power the cognitive infrastructure, right? So you can think about your traditional technology roles, you will definitely need, and a lot of them, right? You're also talking about service industries and service businesses. And so you will have those roles, whether it's hotels, whether it's banks, whether it's manufacturing, you're going to have those roles. You're going to have a lot. I think robotics and space development is another opportunity that'll be there. I think you're going to have lots of roles in robotics, lots of roles in space, and especially in Earth ground station and satellite communications. All those technology roles, you're going to see roles that exist in there as well. And I also think you're going to have creative roles. See, NEOM is a place for you to come to be the best of you possible. And so I think if you are an artist, if you are a humanitarian, if you are an environmentalist, I think you're going to have a wonderful time in several job opportunities at NEOM. So in the end, when people ask me about, the roles that'll be available at NEOM, I would say they all will be. The difference is what are the capabilities that you have? Are you a curious person? Curiosity, I think, will be the number one trait of a successful NEOM employee. Will be they don't worry about what they don't know, but they wake up each and every day and challenge what it means to be true. That's the key. What is truth? Can they challenge that? Can they challenge their core beliefs? Can they challenge what they believe? They thought this was true, but actually, no, let me ask a bunch of more questions. That's how we foster innovation, not worrying about what we don't know, but fundamentally challenging what the world says can or cannot be done. And that's what I think, if there's anything that is common across NEOM employees, I think it's that NEOM spirit, that energy, that drive for curiosity. I think that's what makes such a great place to work.
Yeah, seems like a challenging environment. Okay, so the last point I would raise before we take the audience questions, because we have many of them, is citizens. We already talked about citizens being the center of cognitive and smart city, but now we are really taking the citizens of NEOM. So who will be the citizens of NEOM? We know NEOM is a city for dreamers, for doers, but who are really the citizens? Are they exist today, or they are the citizens of the future?
Yeah. So again, people evolve. So who are the citizens of NEOM? It's anyone and everyone. It's an inclusive and diverse environment. They share common traits. Why do I say it's an inclusive and diverse environment? Diversity is the potential to create value. That means I have different views of different people, yes. But inclusion is the realization of value through full participation. That means that I'm not only have them in NEOM, but they are participating in creating. I'm listening and capturing and understanding their ideas in NEOM. So in order for NEOM to be the land of the future, the dreamers and doers, it has to have a unique and a variety and an inclusive perspective. So that means by definition, it's got to be open to all. Has to be, or we won't get there. So do these people exist today? Yes. If you looked at the 600 people that are living right now, I'm one of them, that are living right now in NEOM, you see one of the most diverse places to work I've ever been at and live, without a question. You have every nationality on the planet working right now, engaging and living in NEOM right now. And why are they here? There's no tech. Yeah. Why are they here? Well, they're here because they share a common vision and this notion of inclusion and participation and driving ideas and fostering and pulling that energy off one another. That's what gets us going every day. So yes, it's open to all. Yes, these people exist today. We're living right now in NEOM. And I think Saudi Arabia is really showing the world, is really taking a leadership. I mean, in a time where the world needs leadership. I mean, the Crown Prince's vision, it's one thing to say something, it's another thing to execute. And I think he's really showing the world that it is possible. It is possible to come from different backgrounds and respect those backgrounds, but live together in harmony in a beautiful place and work together towards a common goal. He's made that possible. I'm here. All of my leadership team and my peers, the diversity that you see in NEOM is whether it's gender diversity, whether it's ethnic diversity, whether it's location diversity, whether it's diversity of thought, is really impressive. Really, really impressive.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Joseph Bradley. If you don't mind, now we will take some of the questions for about 10 minutes,
Sure.
audience questions. And so perhaps kind of brief answers to each question so we can cover as many as we can.
Sure.
Okay, so one question is asking about the infrastructure, and one of the most requirements to build a smart city is to have smart grid. Smart grid.
Oh, smart grid.
Yeah. Yes. And smart grid need to be robust infrastructure in order to avoid, again, cybersecurity. And perhaps if you want to mention about the infrastructure in terms of the energy as well.
Yes, so energy is led by Peter Terrarium. What we're building at NEOM doesn't exist in the world today. The smart grid doesn't do it justice. So the basic problem is that we are solving is 100% renewable energy. Means that not only do you have to manage the supply side and the frequency, which is the biggest issue, frequency variances, but you have to manage the supply side, but you also have to manage the demand side. So that means if you come to NEOM, maybe you want to push your washer and dryer, or you want to start your washer, but you don't need to start right now. You might say start when ready, or start when optimal. So we have to build and with Peter's intelligence and his team, we have to build a truly an energy market and energy management system, cognitive one that doesn't exist today. There's clearly aspects of technology, but there isn't 100% renewable. And that's because there's not a place on the planet that has access to hydrogen, solar, and wind the way that we do in this unique environment that is NEOM.
Thank you. How will education look like in cognitive communities?
It's a great question. I would say, to me, again, learning should be customized and built to the individual, to the student, not having the student to have to change to the learning institution. So again, I think from a cognitive standpoint, you're talking about the ability to learn and experience in a manner that's suited for you. So if you're a person that is a visual learner, then your representation and how we're going to show you things is visual. If you're a person that's more of an oral learner to hear stuff, great. You're a reader, whatever your learning style is. I think in NEOM, the educational resources should be able to adapt and be customized to the individual.
Thank you very much. Another question from the audience asking about the funds and finance. And the point was the fund of smart city is expensive and difficult. And this is why some of the authorities tend to have the private partnership, public-private partnership model. But not every project brings revenue. So how is NEOM will react toward the fund and solutions and the BBB model?
Yeah, so I think initially in NEOM's progression, we realized that we have to invest, Saudi has to invest to show the world that these ideas are real. And so the majority in the early years of NEOM is funded via the PIF. As you move towards next year and the following years and outwards, you are able now to be able to attract more private funding, because as the vision becomes more reality, private investors get super, super excited. We have several areas of private investment now, whether it's the Helios announcement, a couple of several $1 billion for green hydrogen that's been announced from an energy perspective. We have several investors that have shown a willingness to invest in hyperscale data centers. And so we are not having at this moment a challenge in terms of getting and attracting private investment. So I'm super excited about, it's another reason why I believe NEOM will be successful, is because from the outset, the Crown Prince laid out a strategy that is very intelligent in the sense of showing the world what we can do, but realizing that you can't scale the creation of a city without the involvement of the private sector. And so that's embedded in everything that we do. And so we're super excited about that.
Thank you. Okay, how about competitions with other cities? Is there a particular competitors to NEOM? If you can comment on this question.
I think, again, it depends on what types of experiences you want to enable. I think clearly people will continue to want to compare NEOM to what they believe to be the smart cities of today. Singapore being clearly a smart city. Obviously, Dubai is mentioned a lot. But again, when you think about what we're trying to do, fundamentally, it's a complete redesign. So we don't worry about competing with other cities. We think that's kind of like the wrong view. From our perspective, it's about how do we attract and shape the future citizens of NEOM. We put that citizen in the center. And so we're redefining, by definition, we're not going to start at a Singapore. We're not going to start at a Dubai. We are fundamentally redesigning the very nature of what it means to be a city. No cars, no roads. Yeah. Why is that? Because we want to put you as a citizen in the center so you can get to where you need to be. You don't want to lose all that space up for access. So that's our focus, right? Is on the citizen.
Okay, thank you. How to improve our creativity to meet NEOM's vision?
Don't focus on the answers. Too many people focus on, I got an answer for that, or I got a solution for that. Focus on asking the right questions. I actually wrote a book on this called Questioneering. And if you want to improve your curiosity, you have to become an excellent questioner. You have to really listen, not for the sake of agreeing or disagreeing, but for listening for the sake of understanding. And that will drive you to ask more intelligent questions. Because if you ask the wrong question, by definition, you will not achieve the optimal answer.
Perfect. One question, is there existing city today to consider as a smart city from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say from a smart city perspective, not a cognitive one. Singapore clearly would probably would be one. Shenzhen in China would probably be the other one. Those two, I think, would probably be I would consider to be the most advanced on the smart city roadmap. But again, you know, what you have is you have use cases of isolation. You have, oh, they got smart lamps or they got smart parking. You see these, you see instances, but they're not interconnected to form a unique common experience. That's the challenge. And then once you interconnect them, then you have the challenge of being able to actually upgrade all of that equipment. So once I know what's going to happen, even if I go to Singapore and Shenzhen and I solve the data architecture problems, now I got predictability. Yeah, but now I got to be able to control it. Now I got to make those control systems autonomous. The cost to replace all those things, man, and the time it would take. So again, I think they're smart, but they're definitely not cognitive.
Okay. Perhaps the last questions, and then I will give you 2 minutes if you want to have your overall and final message to the audience. How can we be part of NEOM developers, or we participate into the project?
Go to our website. We're always populating jobs. We're hiring like crazy, whether you're a developer, whether you're a sociologist, a doctor. I mean, all the sectors are employing and growing. We're growing like crazy. So you can engage that way. If not, if you want to be a partner, you can send an inquiry. We have 16 plus sectors: financial services, retail, manufacturing, real estate, hotels. We have all these sectors. So if you want to get involved in NEOM, reach out, ping people on LinkedIn, go to our website, apply for a role. Either way you can, but hopefully between the website and jobs and partnership opportunities, hopefully you can find a way to participate.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you for the audience for their questions. I know there are many of them, but unfortunately we cannot take every question, but also some of the questions already answered through the conversation we have. Mr. Bradley, in 1 or 2 minutes, what is your overall message to the audience today?
I would say what an exciting time. I mean, NEOM is fundamentally redefining the art of the possible. And we're so fortunate to have, I think, a crown prince that has laid out this vision. Be proud, be excited, get involved and believe in it. It will happen. We can do it. And I'm confident that at the end of this decade, in 2030, they're going to look back on Saudi Arabia and NEOM and say, that was a turning point. That was fundamentally served as a turning point for the world, where we stopped, rebooted, and said, hey, there's a better way for us to live in harmony with nature and the environment. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Bradley, to have you today. We are so lucky to have you, and that was a very informative discussion. And our thanks to the audience for being there. And I'm lucky to be there. Thank you, ThinkTech, for organizing this initiatives. And we are really hoping to see you in next webinar. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.